So I signed up to talk about open science when I found out we were doing a meeting that was dedicated to Aaron Swartz. So I'm going to explain PDF tribute to people. I didn't know Aaron, so I'm not going to talk about him a lot. I've provided these links because I think you should go and read the posts that he's made and read what people have said about him and watch the videos. Before I found out about him, I probably would have said, oh, that's the guy who made Reddit, or that's the guy who's an activist who downloaded all those JSTOR articles. You can really learn a lot by watching people talk about him, and I have a link to the Internet Archive Memorial. On his own website, I've linked to Raw Nerve, where he has a lot of essays talking about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. It's a concept in psychology that's really interesting, and you should go and read that. Evil Joel mentioned JSTOR, but just in case anyone didn't know what it was, I wanted to kind of just give a little quick description of it there, and they released a statement on Aaron. I'm going to be releasing these slides so that you can click on all the links I have. Once people started to find out about Aaron's death, I started to see like my worlds collide on Twitter. I follow technical people and I also follow science bloggers, and all of a sudden I started to see PDF tribute, and people were posting links to their papers, and people started seeing that, and they wrote scrapers to catch all of the tweets with PDF tributes. And even before this, people wanted to share their articles and read articles, and you could see people tweet, ICANN has PDF on Twitter, and Reddit has a scholar where people would post and ask for documents so that they could do their research. People say that the internet interprets censorship as damage. I guess this version of it is the internet interprets lack of access as damage and routes around it. So it would be better if the damage didn't exist. And aside from liberating PDFs, people can work on things to try and change the system. Jonathan Eisen is a science blogger, and he has a couple of posts that I'd like you to read. One of them talks about how to share your PDFs. I think all of you can probably do that now because you're technical people and you're used to doing things like that. But the other one is about a more activist kind of standpoint. It tells you to publish in fully open access journals if you can. Boycott non-open access journals. He included, not even reviewing for them. If you want to look at how people are doing that, you can go look up the cost of knowledge, where people were pretty outraged at Elsevier and started boycotting their journals. Anyway, go read those. So there are different levels of open access, just like people talk about different types of freedom. It ranges, it doesn't just mean that you get to have a PDF and read the paper. Think of it in terms of usability and accessibility. Information goes into this channel, the whole tool chain should be accessible. It should be human readable and machine readable. It would be great if people didn't have to write tools to scrape it because it's being all mungy and horrible. Because you want it to be accessible to everyone and to people who make tools. And PDFs are where information goes to die, so don't just have things go in PDFs. Okay, so the reason I'm giving this talk is about open science. A few years ago, I wasn't a member of Pumping Station 1. It's a hackerspace on the north side. And I decided to become a member because I heard people were going to have a meeting on open science. And I didn't know what open science was. I'm like an amateur. I like to read people talking about science. I like psychology, physics, all of that. It's just kind of fun. And then I met these people, and they were like, hey, we can have a lab, and we can just do stuff for fun. Most of them were chemical engineers or biologists or physicists. Me, I actually really like psychology. It's really cool. I got a degree in computer science and psychology because computer science was boring all by itself. I mean, it's okay, but it's no psychology. So I went to PyCon last year because I Googled open science and psychology, and the people that I found when I found that intersection were some people working on an open science framework, and it was written in Python, and they were going to go to PyCon. I was like, cool. So choice blindness, that's a way that your brain works where usually you're used to environment staying the same, like this table's here and it's not going to disappear, but there's some things that kind of happen where if someone changes something, like if you decide you want Earl Grey tea, but someone gave you oolong, you might not notice, even though you think you would. And there was this cool paper about that called Magic at the Marketplace. Choice blindness for the taste of jam and the smell of tea. It was by this really cool lab where they had something where they had people, they used sleight of hand to get people to show them two pictures of people, and they would go, which picture do you think is which person do you think is more attractive? And they would pick it, and then using a card trick, they would slide it away, and the person would see the person's face and go, oh, I like that person because of this and this and this, and you're like realizing, whoa, my mind is blown, because consciousness is just this sort of retroactive narrative imposed upon how we think or something. I don't know, it's really cool, but then it's so counterintuitive that you just want to read the paper and see if it answers all these questions you have. But it's, you can get it at El Silvier for $40 for only one day, literally. But you have all these questions. You're not supposed to read that. I'm just telling you, those are a whole bunch of questions I've posted in blog posts about that paper. For that tea and jam paper, it was cool. I knew to go Google around. Maybe they have it on their website. They did. That was great. The next study they did, which is crazy. You won't even believe it. I read about it, and they published it in the public Library of Online Science. It was completely awesome. So in this study, they had someone go to a park and survey people before an election. It was in Sweden. And they surveyed them on topics that were pretty antithetical, things that people were really controversial and people had definite opinions on. And they had people fill out a short survey, and through a sleight of hand, when they flipped over the page, it reversed their answers. And then the person asked each, hey, why do you think, immigrants should be kicked out or something? And earlier they said, hey, immigrants are great and awesome. And the people, they just went with it, They were like, oh no, I believe the opposite of what I just said I believe. And they didn't even notice it. Of course, if you're me, you have oh, no way. I want to read what the heck they're talking about. And you can, because they published it in an online access. So it's pretty cool. So that's, one way that's open access, which is part of the whole umbrella of open science. And it's something I really like. But there's other stuff, though. When you have open science, you can't have crap like that happening. If you research freaking cancer, you don't, I just can't believe that someone who's researching cancer treatments is gonna lie to people who have cancer. They suck. And someone did that. They said their treatment was successful and they suck and they lied. So other people have lied. At Pumping Station 1, we have a motto. It's just fucking do it. We have a do-ocracy. If you want something done, just do it. Don't be a dick. If you're going to do something that takes more than 4 hours to correct, when you paint a bike shed, you probably maybe want to, hey, I'm going to go paint the bike shed. Whatever. Anyway, I like Yuri Simonson. He did some really cool articles, and he did a Monte Carlo simulation of something because he read some paper. I can't remember if it was by Smeesters or one of those guys who were frauds, and said, this table of your data, it looks fake. It looks like you were just making it up. Because, and he asked them for their data, and they actually gave it to him. Anyway, so look him up online. I have his homepage on there. And you can read how he just grabbed a paper and did some simulations of data that someone was collecting from people just to show that their paper was fraudulent, and he discovered 3 authors maybe like that. Well, can't see that. Okay, last year maybe I saw a talk at LCA conference. Carl was there, so I got to watch the streaming talks and got to ask Carl to go talk to the speaker after his talk. It was all about your brains. And one of the things he talked about in that talk was about how your brains kind of have these cognitive knickknacks that you don't know about, like priming, and how this one guy, Barge, had a study where he gave people materials to read, and unbeknownst to the people, the materials might have something about old age in it, some words in there that would prime them. And after they walked out of the study, which they weren't told what it was about, they had someone in the hallway measuring how quickly they would walk to the elevator. Supposedly, the people who were primed with old age terms walked more slowly, which sounds really cool, but there was a problem. People haven't been able to replicate that. It's a really famous study years ago, and there's lots and lots and lots of research built upon it. And some people published something like, hey, you can't replicate that. And some, famous blogger, science reporter said, whoa, it's like Clever Hans, which maybe kind of got Barg upset. And he talked about it, and he said, you guys, you don't know what you're doing. You didn't replicate this right. You didn't do what I said in my study. Other people came back and said, you didn't say that. Yes, we did. No, we didn't. And he goes, you don't know how to run social psychology experiments. This started looking to me somewhat like, you guys are working on a software project and you suck because you don't give me the documentation on how to deploy your stack. I don't want to work with you. So I don't know, maybe open science is a way that people can have a wiki of your experiment and maybe deployment scripts and something. And I think Barge could have responded a completely different way and worked with the people and said, did you try this? No? Did you try that? Oh, hey, here's what's happening. I added a link to an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education, which has more of a nuanced review of this whole thing than what I'm giving. The author of that article went and talked to Barge and some other people. So it's not all anti-Barge, and priming isn't fake. Priming is still real. Okay. So I think I'm kind of at the end of my talk, but I will mention a few things. It's not just all about preventing fraud or making replication easier. I think about this in the terms of how free and open source is a wonderful ecology to live in, and I think that we can show this to scientists and help them have some of the same benefits. After I learned about open science, the FBI invited some people in hackerspaces from all over the world to come so that they could talk about DIY bio and how to interact with, with your city so that no one would freak out that you had a science lab that was not being written at school. And when I was there, I got to see lightning talks from each of these places. And someone gave a lightning talk on some 3D printed equipment that he was working on in his genetics lab so that he could share that once he was done with this prototype, he could put it on Thingiverse or something, and labs from all over the place would be able to download it and print it and benefit from his work. So I don't know where all to take this, but I guess it's so obvious to me that I'm not sure what to say. And I guess I didn't make a slide for this, but it's really easy to be depressed if you have an affective disorder or something like that. And I just wanted to say that Aaron, I didn't know him, but reading about his depression and stuff, he survived every day up until the last day of his life, because you read about him and you realize all the things he did. He worked on RSS when he was, 14, and just doing that would be something that's an accomplishment of a lifetime. And he went and he did all these things, and even while being a depressed person, sometimes I find it hard to just do my day job and to go and have a weekend where I relax. So, the guy was fighting and a survivor, and he didn't make it at the end, but he did manage a lot. So I just wanted to kind of give a tribute to him for being a fighter and for accomplishing so much. Anyway, does anyone have any questions? No questions? No, you have a question?
Here in one of your slides said something about the article was only available for one day. Why was that?
I have no idea. I see this all the time. Like, I don't know what this model is. Like if I want to read, yeah, it's, you get access to the PDF and they say, oh, you only have access for a day. I mean, I can download the PDF and keep it. I guess they're, yeah, I mean, I don't know why they do that. Like, yeah, go look at, maybe they're like, you can't come back here and download it again or something. Whereas like, I don't know, places like Amazon and some other services I use, you have the books, they're there, they're always there. So it's just some weird outmoded relic of a publishing model or something, I don't know. Yes?
This is really, this might be kind of a hard question, but how can you measure the spread of open science?
I don't really know. There's a project. And I keep forgetting to repeat the questions. The first question had been, what am I talking about for only one day for $40? And I answered that. The second question is there a way to measure the influence of open science? So there's this thing called impact factor, and there are people who are trying to define that for modern world. And I know they've looked at the number of citations that articles get, and they can compare the number of citations between closed access articles and open access articles. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. But that's just one way to measure the influence of something. I wish I could remember it's actually a project. It might be on GitHub, like some version of it. And it has like impact factor in the name, but I don't remember. It's an interesting question. So maybe I can list a link to that on the GitHub project I made. We were gonna have a hack night, but it was only like a couple of hours tonight, so we should probably do one another time. So speaking of that, maybe I'll just pull off the GitHub project. So I like threw this together really fast when we were talking about Chippy, and I made a really low bar. So, but I made a bunch of issues. So where people can like, you know, if there's another hack night, we can go through all of this. And I don't know anything about legal reforms, so I didn't fill that out much. I know more about open science activities. Let's see. I'm going to be at PyCon. After PyCon, they have sprints. Last year, I went to PyCon because I met the people who do the open science framework. They're going to be there again this year, and we'll have a sprint afterwards. Let's see. If you're not going to be at PyCon, I can help you with this afterwards. But in the meantime, there's a mailing list, Google Groups mailing list, whatever, called the Science Liberation Front. I've noticed a lot of people start posting in there, talking about PDF scraping tools, ways to interact with Zotero and Mendeley and stuff like that. Kind of ways to free up information and get it out there. Let's see. Oh, that's all I have in there right now. Okay. Oh, I thought I put more stuff. Okay, I'll list more stuff, and I'll try and list the impact factor project that someone's working on. Okay, where's it? Yes? Someone have a question or no more questions? Oh, whichever.
I just thought maybe give us some examples of what you see people doing at the public station 1, and I keep on thinking I should go there. Inspire me to show us.
Let's see, last weekend? I think it was last weekend, or maybe in the weekend before. We had a workshop in the electronics area where I probably have pictures too, where we did e-textile stuff. So Nate, he's one of the members there. I'm learning from him. He likes e-textiles. So we got some Floras, which are Arduino boards that are on it's a nice form factor for sewing into things. So we got some Floras for everyone, made sure everyone could hook them up, run through the DOS blinking lights. That's like the hello world of embedded programming. And then like said, okay, here's some anti-static material and fabric, and you can sew that together, and it makes kind of like a pressure sensor button. and someone turned it into a, like a USB keyboard input thing, and they pressed it, and whenever they pressed it, it would say meow. Let's see. There's going to be another one of those like in March, the first weekend. Other things that people do. Someone's teaching forging, blacksmithing. They have the electronics workshop. They have a craft area where they have knitting stuff. They have a laser cutter. So if you felt like people cut acrylic to make Raspberry Pi boxes, so you can put your Raspberry Pis in there. Oh, and there's a group that meets to play with Raspberry Pis on Mondays. I don't remember what they did. Carl does, because he was at the last one and I wasn't at it. People talk about environmental monitoring. Oh yeah, speaking of monitoring, there are people there who brew beer, and they have periodic meetings, and there's like a beer brewing station that I don't touch because I don't want to blow up or something. Not that it would literally blow up. I just would probably break it. And someone wrote, like, I think in Python, an IRC bot so you could type, temp. Should I go on IRC? This might be kind of scary. And you can ask it what temperature it is. Hold on a second. Let me get online here. And I'll just demonstrate it to you. Yeah, the intersection of, let's see.
Where they have a Raspberry Pi hooked up to the beer brewing and are actually controlling an air conditioner and monitoring temperature.
Oh, I can't spell right. Okay, so here, like that tells you stuff about the space. What is it, temp? Yeah, it tells you what temperature the beer is and stuff like that. Next, does it tell me when I left about 7 days ago. Okay. Oh, hey, snapshot. What can we do? Snapshot. Gantry shop. Oh, come on. There's another bot that comes and says, okay, but if you're outside, you should click here. And I never remember what it is. It's like space.pumpingstation1.something or the other. I can't remember. Oh, well.
There's some cameras and stuff.
Yeah, so, hey, did Eric ever give a talk on lidless to Chippy, or did he give it only at a PS1 thing? Oh, okay, yeah. Eric wrote a lot of the IRC bots. Let's see. Yeah. But they have people who do all kinds of stuff. We meet twice a month for Python office hours, which is kind of sort of random. It started out because some people wanted to hang out and talk about these Python classes that they were taking online. And then I kind of was sad that Chippy never has any kind of workshop-y kind of things. So I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to borrow your Python office hours to let people come if they wanted to hang out and just work on stuff together.
We need to support you more on that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I think now some people are talking about having a Haskell class. There's like, I don't know, people race toy cars like that you can sit in. I don't know. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's awesome. You could totally be a member, or just show up on Tuesday and kind of interact with people and see if you like, interacting with them. Yeah, last question because I'm talking too long.
All right, thanks, Sheila.
Okay.
Thanks, Carl, for recording all of this.